cross hand is gonna go underneath Nabil's arm here, just to kind of disrupt this post, making it a little bit easier to break down his posture. So I have two hands in the collar here. I'm gonna angle myself towards that collar, knees to my chest. At this point, you could start already feeding your hand deeper and hand going over his back to start to threaten the potential of like a cross choke here. But we're gonna use this broken posture to start attacking the omoplata here. Sorry, omoplata triangle. So as soon as I get here, you can either put your foot to the floor to hip out, or I could like shimmy off of my partner, and I'm gonna bite my knee tight to Nabil's shoulder. For this setup to work, I need to capture his arm between my hip and my ribs here, okay? Which is a lot easier than you think. But once I bite my knee to the shoulder, that's already starting to isolate this arm. It's important that once I bite here, I extend my hip away. Even though it feels like I'm giving him space, I have him clamped down pretty tight here, and this is actually just gonna continue to isolate and stretch out his arm. Once I go for my clamp, I'm gonna briefly ease up on my pressure to get my heel to his shoulder. If I try and keep this pinch and get my heel to his shoulder, I'm gonna overshoot. So it's important that I pinch and then quickly ease up so that the heel fits into the pocket of the shoulder, right? Like the trap and delt here. Now, it does take a bit of the pressure off, but that's what I want for my triangle setup, because now it's gonna feel like Nabil can turn back into me and posture up, and that's what's gonna let me free my right leg. I'm lifting my right leg, biting it across, right away grabbing my shin to lock the triangle as tight as I can to start. I know his arm is not on the right side to finish the triangle, so I still lock it as tight as I can, just so that when I start to move his arm to the other side, he won't be able to posture the triangle. You can lift your hips to bring your arm to the other side. My favorite way still to do this is scooping my hand underneath and then using both my arms to drag his arm to this side here, okay? Now I'm gonna go back to my shin and my foot's gonna go to his hip. So when I adjust the angle of my triangle, which I'm doing right now, I either need two hands on his head or a hand on the shin. I need some sort of temporary lock or posture control just so that I don't swivel and let him completely posture out of my triangle here. So whether it's two hands on the head and swivel or grabbing your shin if you can reach for it, I'm gonna use my other foot on the hip, either on his hip or on the floor rather, to pivot. It's not a hip escape. See how my back is still flat on the floor? That's very important here. If I hip escape, you'll see how there's gonna be space created here. If I hip escape, there's a little gap. Even if his head doesn't come out, the leg won't be lined up perfectly with the artery. So I have to make sure that my back stays flat, the leg is tight, and I just swivel here. Now when I relock my triangle, let's rotate a little bit, Nabil. When I relock my triangle, you shouldn't see Nabil's shoulder here. So I try and lock very high to my shin. I'm not going like too low to my foot here. And I'm also gonna flex both my feet when I go for my finish. So you can't see his shoulder. That tells me that I'm able to push his shoulder into the artery on this side. Now focus mainly when you finish your triangle today on flexing your feet and pushing your knees together. And you should be able to get the tap without having to rely on pulling on the head. Within reason. If the person's a little bit bigger or it's not quite cinched up, okay, then you can add in a little bit extra juice, like lifting your hips up and pulling down the head. But most of the squeeze should actually come from like this sideways pressure, okay? So again, same position, starting in close guard, same side collar, cross hand goes underneath to the second hand in the collar. Knees to my chest, reaching over Nabil's back, hip out, bite my knee onto the shoulder. I just need the arm trapped into this little pocket here. So I pinch really hard with my knee and extend my hip away. Now from here, I switch my heel to his shoulder. And again, you're gonna feel as the person in close guard, it takes a bit of pressure off of you, but that's what I want. I want him to think he can posture up or turn back into me to let me free my second leg, catching my triangle. So I go from pretty much my left leg over to switching to my right leg all the way across. Okay, from here I can lock the triangle as tight as I can get it. It's not gonna be tight enough so it's still on my ankle, but I just want a temporary lock until I can scoop and bring the arm all the way across the other side. And then now I go back to my shin or hands on the head, foot on the hip, swivel, and then now when I relock, over his shoulder, flexing my feet, pinching my knees together, and then again from there, if you need to pull on the head and lift your hips, you can do it then. Yep.
What if Nabil doesn't posture up?
Okay, so the next technique we'll look at, we'll cover that. But basically, it's going to be an omoplata then. So if he shells up and holds my leg and kind of senses a trap or doesn't want to let me get my leg free, then I'll just cut my losses and we'll go omoplata. So, same side collar, hand underneath, break the posture, reach over. And again, if he just chills here, of course I can start looking for my cross choke, but that arm is already isolated. So all I need to do is hip escape, bite my knee hard, extend my hip away, heel to the shoulder, leg comes out, adjust, lift my hips if I need to, cross the arm, cut my angle, and then really emphasize, don't have your feet relaxed here, flex. That's gonna activate all the muscles in your hip adductors as well, and then I can start to pinch my knees together And you should be able to, at least in technique, get the submission without having to pull on the person's head and lift your hips up like crazy. Prioritize the triangle over the omoplata because it's a higher percentage finish for the submission. But the omoplata will open up more options in terms of sweeping and taking the back and other different options. But I think we should prioritize trying to go for the triangle first because you could just end the match with the triangle, more likely than the omoplata. But if the person defends accordingly, we just cut our losses and go for the omoplata next, okay? Another thing I want to talk about too is, I mentioned the contingency for this technique is like I have to catch his arm in this pocket, which is not overly hard to do, but I see a couple groups sometimes where the arm comes across here. So if I'm in close guard and I go for my knee pinch and his arm drags here, recognize that I have his back, I just stay tight, and I can just start to climb, and he gave me his back, okay? So it's really, I guess, I'm trying to capture that arm for the sake of this technique today, but if his arm came loose in front of me, great, you just take the back from there too, so it's still another good option. But today I really want to focus on capturing this arm. Focus a lot on pinching my knees and extending my hip. You can shimmy out and do your adjustments, but this is where it's going to be kind of make or break. I might feel that Nabil's holding onto my leg here with a grip or holding tight. So if I feel that's the case, once I get to my knee pinch, I feel how I can't take that leg out. Even if I put my heel here, my leg is pretty stuck. So now instead, I'm just gonna omoplata. We already extended our back away and I have my hands free for distance management here. So I should very easily be able to just throw my leg over. The tension of my shin pushing his face is gonna help me pull this leg out. I've yet to have someone who's so strong or holds so tight that I couldn't eventually free my foot here. So I'm not really concerned about it. You might feel like while you're practicing, oh, it's really tight. No, you'll just push the face with your leg. This leg will withdraw, and now we're in omoplata. Okay, now we're gonna focus on attacking the shoulder instead. There's so many different ways to attack the omoplata. If you think you could just sit up, go ahead. I have a hard time, especially with the shoulder in my hips. It feels like it's hard to sit up. So when I shoot the omoplata, I usually prioritize it like this. Locking my figure four, but I actually stay on my side here for a couple different reasons. One, I can pinch my shoulders and knees together to keep his arm bent in the pocket here. And then it's also easier for me to get up when I'm on this side for a couple different reasons. But one, I can get to my elbow first, cover the back, and then get to my hand and scoot out. Okay? If you try and just sit up, you might feel like his arm is jamming your hip and you can't actually get to the seated position. Or you'll be like leaning like this, and then there's no way I can sit up and finish the omoplata. So once I lock it, I lock the figure four, I turn away. Also why I turn away is I can like really reach high. Sometimes people are very athletic and they'll like cartwheel over you. If I'm flat on my back, like he can still cartwheel over, I can still block a little bit, but when I turn to my side, I can just reach higher and it's gonna put me in a better position to sweep if he does overcommit for the cartwheel. So I like to be on my side for that reason. There's a couple things you have to be mindful of in the omoplata. Definitely him cartwheeling over. Let's just go slow with the cartwheeling. So let's say you step one leg over at a time. If I'm not careful, he's gonna go 1, 2, very athletic, right into side control, and now you kind of pass your own guard. So let's go back. So that's definitely one thing I'm mindful of. The next thing is also, if I'm too flat on my back, there's no tension bending his arm. So he'll bring his arm, not necessarily out, but he'll hook the other side of my hip. And then now here, he can literally just lift my legs and throw my legs all the way to side control on this side. So those are the two biggest concerns that I feel when I have my omoplata. So once I get my leg over the shoulder, I lock the figure four, stay on my side. If he doesn't cartwheel right away, okay, great, I can grab the belt. What's gonna keep the arm in the pocket is my knees to my chest. Then I get to my elbow, then I get to my hand, and now I can shimmy out to my hip. To finish the omoplata, I need to get his shoulder to the floor. If he's tall here, it's gonna be very hard for me to sit up. So a couple different ways we could do it. I like to grab the elbow, open my figure four, and my leg that's in the omoplata, I'm gonna stomp my leg straight. And that's gonna get his shoulder to touch the floor. I don't need his hips and for him to be fully flat. I just need the shoulder down on the floor. Now, I can go to my S position and slowly start to lean my hips forward. Okay. Sometimes with people who are a little bit more flexible, especially women I find are much more flexible than guys, if you get here and it feels so hard to sit up, then you could literally just let the arm go and start to chase the back here as well. That might be an option. I think with the omoplata, like I said, it's a lower percentage finish rate for the submission. So be happy with taking sweeps sometimes if you feel like it's too hard to get the submission. Okay. Just cut your losses and take what you can. So we can still practice the exact same setup. Same side collar, cross collar, angling off, knees to my chest, hand over the back. If he doesn't move or I don't want to hip out, of course I could cross choke, but I also can pinch, extend, heel to the shoulder. Okay, I feel my leg is stuck or he's holding a pant grip or something, so I make sure I have my distance management. throw my leg over, and it's mean, but I'm gonna push his face as I withdraw my leg. Lock my figure four, I'm still on my side, so I can block him from rolling over me, and then I can get to my elbow, scoop my butt up to my hand, and get to here, okay? Another option too, sometimes if you feel like you get here, and it could be that he puts his knee on my stomach here. Yeah, maybe I feel like, okay, now it's gonna be definitely hard to sit up. I control with my right hand his arm, I grab the pant, and I'm gonna hip escape my butt away from him while pushing the pant, and I can just start doing this. And that's good enough to get the leg off of you. Sometimes you can even do this so much so that you can fully flatten him out like this too. And then I can start to try and sit up from here, okay? I prefer to be on my side, but this is a good option if he puts the knee on top. Now, same thing when I get here, I can slip the elbow a little bit, especially if they have like bigger arms and you feel like it's hard to sit up. I can let his elbow slip a little bit to the floor. And then I go for my S position and very slowly lift my hips, leaning towards his far shoulder. Okay, one more time. Break the posture, over the back, hip out, pinch. Okay, now here's where you decide. If I think that I can get my triangle, I put the heel to the shoulder, withdraw my leg. You'll feel him posturing. If I feel he's staying tight, okay, I can just pinch my knees here too. If I don't want him to posture, I can keep him in this space. Throw my leg over, withdraw my leg, figure four, get the belt, up to my elbow, then my hand, shimmy out. Once I'm here, I can stomp my leg straight, see how that drops his shoulder to the floor. Now I can S position and slowly lift my hips. All right, let's finish with this, guys. 1, 2. The cross stroke. So we can kind of start with a similar idea, but I want to use